Good morning, and happy Friday to everyone. Thank you so much for being with us here today at Friday Cafe. We've been exploring the core competencies for family-facing professionals. So we've rolled this out step by step, and today is our culmination. Today is the wrap-up of that work for now, and it's also the wrap-up of our Friday Cafe for the season. So I'm Judy Carson with the State Department of Education. I'm joined here, as always, with my colleague and friend, Betsy Laborious, and we're pleased to bring Friday Cafe to you as your professional network. So we got together with people and we said, okay, what would it look like? What would we do? And what would we call it? We agreed we wanted to meet on Fridays and in the morning and have coffee. So one of the brilliant, I think I know who it was, came up with Friday Cafe. CAFE stands for Community and Family Engagement. Well, what are we going to do? Well, we need to build connections. We need to know who else is doing this work so we can have our colleagues and our allies, just like the math teachers do. I can press a button and know every math teacher in the state of Connecticut. Let's start trying to do that for family engagement professionals. We also need to expand our thinking. What are you doing? How did that work? And get new ideas and sow the seeds that can grow into all of the great innovative practices that you all are doing. And we need a professional identity for this. So these are words that came from you and people like you that sat at tables like this. So please be thinking as you go along, what's my aha moment? So with that, I'm pleased to introduce our guest stars for today, our conversation catalysts. So our guest stars for this episode of Friday Cafe are the lovely and talented Ann Henderson, who is a friend of Connecticut and just one of the people that has put this field on the map, and also co-founder of the National Association for Family and Community Engagement. And co-starring with Ann is the lovely and talented Maggie Caspe, who is the primary author behind the core competencies for family-facing professionals and has done all of us an incredible service by putting this together and has partnered with Connecticut to roll it out. So we're very thrilled to have these people in person with us at Friday's Cafe. So take it away, ladies.
Okay, got to have the clicker, right? It's so wonderful to be back here in this enchanted place with all of you at the closing session of Friday Cafe for this school year. As Judy was saying, these events really recharge our batteries and get together with people like you who are doing such important work in our schools. And so Maggie and I are going to do a little frickin' frack here to reintroduce you to reflect. And Maggie will take us through the deeper meaning of reflect and help us think about how we do that in just a couple of minutes. But let's just do a little refresher here. NAFSCE, the National Association for Family, School, and Community Engagement, officially kicked off in 2014. And before that, we had no national professional association that was working to advance family engagement in policy and practice across the country. And NAFSCE's mission is to do that, to advance high impact strategies for improving student achievement and advancing equity. And our vision is a world where family engagement is universally practiced to improve children's learning and development and to bring about a more equitable school system and schools across the world. So that's a big vision, but we've narrowed down our mission to high impact practice. And so to do high impact practice, we have to have a deeper understanding of what that is, what that looks like, what is and isn't high impact. And what are the core competencies, knowledge and skills that you as family-facing professionals need to have? And how do we get that? How do we develop that? How do we learn from each other? So I'm going to turn it to Maggie to take us through the next bit.
Good morning. I'm really excited to be here. I actually live in New Jersey, so I drove up this morning, and it's just a beautiful day out, and I'm really excited to be in this gorgeous room with everyone here. So for the next really hour or so, we are going to focus on the family engagement core competencies, as you've been hearing us talk about. But I always think it's helpful to sort of start the conversation with just a blanket definition of what we mean when we think about family and community engagement. So the definition that we at NAFSCE use, and many throughout the field use, is that family and community engagement is a shared responsibility among families, schools, and communities to support student learning, both in school and throughout life. And so in that way, family and community engagement isn't a one-size-fits-all program, but it's really, on one hand, how families are advocating for, supporting their students in school and outside of school. And for family-facing professionals, right? It's about how we're reaching out to families, raising up their voices, and reinforcing their knowledge. And we know from Anne and Karen and a whole host of researchers out there that family and community engagement matters for everyone. It matters for students, it matters for teachers, it matters for communities, it matters for families, and it really matters as a matter of equity. But there's a challenge in our field, and I have our challenge up here, which is that family-facing professionals, and when I use the term family-facing professionals, I'm really speaking about everyone who works with families, school leaders, educators, family coordinators, after-school providers. Really, all of us receive few opportunities early on or throughout our careers to learn how to partner with families and communities effectively. And you know, I think back in January, when I first came to Friday Cafe to lay out some of the family engagement core competencies, I gave a lot of data really substantiating this challenge. But what we really know is that this is problematic, because when we don't have the opportunity to learn and practice family and community engagement, we're less likely to understand families and come with a culturally competent and responsive approach to this work. So 3 years ago, NAFSCE embarked on a pretty ambitious project to create a credential for the field, to create something for the field, to really create a way for us to build our knowledge and skills and dispositions in working with families. And as we sat down to do this, we said, but wait, what is it that we should be learning about? And this is how the family engagement core competencies came to be. Basically, this is a body of knowledge, skills, and dispositions that really lay out what family-facing professionals do to engage families equitably and meaningfully in their practice. And we boiled down a lot of ideas through 3 years of research, through interviews, focus groups, with family coordinators, with family and parent leaders themselves, with administrators, educators, teachers, through a national survey, into these 4 domains that we call reflect, connect, collaborate, and lead. So what family-facing professionals do every day is they reflect. They take a step back to think about their own self in relationship to families, and they value and respect and honor the families that they work with. They connect. They build relationships with families and communities each and every day. They then take those relationships and they collaborate together, and they co-construct programs, services, curriculum, and then they lead alongside one another. They advocate for systems change and champion equitable outcomes throughout the system. So this is what we heard as we really set out to understand what it is that family-facing professionals do, and all of you do every day. So for today's session, what we're going to do is we are going to dive into that very first domain. We saved the best one for last, and we are going to talk about reflect, and we're going to do some reflecting.
When NAFSCE first got started, we had a meeting of people who are people we admire, who've done great research or great practice around the country, and gathered them and said, if we had a professional association, what would we do? And really the first thing everyone said was, we really need to help the practitioners in the field understand how to do this well. Because new research had come out that teachers said the #1 area where they felt least well prepared was engaging families. And not surprisingly, it was their biggest challenge because they had no training in how to do it. So those of you who are educators out there, how many of you had a really good course or content on engaging families when you were training to become a teacher or an educator? I'm looking. Do I, no hands. This is not unusual. I ask this question a lot. Every once in a while somebody comes up with, a half-hearted, maybe, I think it was covered in an early childhood class that I had. Okay, so what does that tell you? We have not been paying attention in the whole field of education on a critical set of skills that teachers need to have. Kids are not hatched from eggs. They live in families. They spend 70% of their waking hours outside of school. If we understand their families and know their culture and background, we're going to be so much better able to reach and motivate our students, right? And so that's, NAFSCE made it a #1 priority. It took a while to raise the funding, but we got it. And we then found wonderful Maggie Caspe, our resident genius, to help lead this. And we said, this is a long-term project. We need to really get buy-in from the very beginning. We need to involve higher education. We need to involve the teachers' unions. We need to involve parent leaders. We need to talk to administrators and really get input from the whole field as we move along every step of the way. And that's what we've done. So Maggie, how long did it take to develop the core competencies?
A good 3 years.
A good 3 years. But as we've been rolling them out, we're getting really like standing ovations because everybody can see themselves in them because that input has been captured. And as somebody who has tracked this research since 1981, when I published the first research review on family engagement and student achievement. And now we have, ta-da, the 5th one. I can tell you that the core competencies that our field has helped us to co-create resonate just beautifully with all the latest research on what is the best, most lasting, highest impact practice. And I'm going to hand it back to you.
So what I'd like to do, I know it's a little bit hard to read, but I think it's important for us to look at very quickly what we mean when we say reflect. So reflect is about 2 key ideas. On one hand, it's about respecting, honoring, and valuing families. It's about examining, respecting, and valuing the cultural and linguistic diversity. And it's also about exploring and understanding with families how children grow and change from birth through adulthood across settings, and how these changes influence families. And on the other hand, it's about embracing equity throughout family engagement by looking inward to develop cultural humility, cognitive flexibility, and perspective-taking skills in order to really practice equitable family and community engagement. And it's also about reflecting on how family history and social context influence family engagement systems and practices. And this is all for free for download on the NAFSCE website. If you go to the website, you can download this report. And I know that there are a lot of jargony terms in there, so we're going to break it down for you. But when we're talking about cultural humility, right, we're really talking about that process of self-reflection, of thinking about our own situations and thinking about those situations in respect to others. When we're talking about perspective-taking skills, we're talking about how we put ourselves in the shoes of other people to really understand what their lived experience might be like. And when we're talking about cognitive flexibility, what we're talking about is not approaching every situation with, you know, a checklist of things that I've done in the past, expecting that they're going to work again in the future, but we're really thinking about all the different ways that we can approach a dilemma and a problem. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a little bit of an example of something that I've been reflecting on lately. So I don't usually tell stories, but I'm going to tell a story now, so bear with me. So last week at exactly this time, I was in Saskatoon, Canada. And you can actually see on the map, Saskatoon is exactly where that bison is. And I was there for a think tank in the province of Saskatchewan who has a new educational plan. And they were looking for people to come in and really speak with tribal elders, speak with administrators, speak with school leaders and teachers and parents about what a family engagement strategy might look like. And I have to be honest, when I got there, I felt like a fish out of water. Every session began with a long and very meaningful land acknowledgement, and then proceeded to every time a tribal elder would speak to the group, they were offered, in a very ceremonial way, a tobacco offering. And that was a real symbol of the community that we were there to listen to their wisdom. So then it was my turn to speak. And I was there to talk about family math. And if you've ever seen me, I love to talk about family math. I wanted to talk about how it happens everywhere, all the time, how it's related to kids' outcomes, how math is actually really cultural. And if I'm really honest, like, the presentation was fine. I got my context across, but I didn't really quite connect with the audience. I didn't not connect with the audience, but it was fine. So later on that afternoon, I went to a session being led by Elder Linda Young, who you can see in the picture over there. I should give a little bit of context, not too much, but Canada is really grappling right now with their history of residential boarding schools and ripping Indigenous children away from their families for long periods of time and really stripping them of their language and their culture. So Linda spoke with the group about kinship. And afterwards, she came and we started to talk a little bit about, I think I lost my mic. But we started to talk a little bit about, I don't know, can you hear me in the back? No?
So we need batteries?
Is it on?
I don't know.
It is not on. Is it on?
No.
Oh, there you go. Hello. So we started to talk about family math, which was great. And Linda started to tell me, I never really thought of myself as a math person. And math for me was really hard, and I was physically punished because of this in my school. And what we started to talk about is she said, I've been starting to think about how it's really the system, though, And it's the way that I was taught that influences my math. So she talked a little bit about how the Cree language, actually, there's no word for taking away. So subtraction can be really hard to that degree. Or she talked about how the word for sun actually means pretend clock. So you can understand how a timeline might be difficult to understand if that's your frame of reference. And as she was talking, I'm not quite sure, sorry. So as she was talking though, something really, like something shifted in me. You know, there was an interruption. There was a feeling within myself that I understood what I had initially missed in that presentation. And what I had not taken into account was putting myself in her shoes. Oh,
Keep that pushed
keep
up.
that, okay. Sorry. What I not really taken into account was putting myself in her shoes and really understanding what family math meant for her. So for me, that was my aha moment. But I tell this story not because what I take away from this story, and I think is important, is this is what we mean by reflection, right? So this is what we're thinking about when we think about reflection. We're thinking about constantly going through. It's this constant process of going, it's okay, I'll yell. It's this constant process of going back and forth, right? Of understanding the culture of the families and the communities and assessing my own Eurocentric view of what family math could be and broadening it to a broader perspective. So I tell that story because what we've been trying to do since the development of the core competencies is we've been trying to lay out what this means in very concrete ways. So we've been meeting with groups of family-facing professionals who have talked about reflection as seeking to understand and learn about families, listening actively, approaching with an open mind, avoiding assumptions, being aware of your own thoughts and emotions, looking for arguments against what you currently believe in, assessing what works and can be improved, advocating for things to be done differently, examining different perspectives, and letting go of initial beliefs.
So Maggie,
Yep.
tell them where you came up with that fantastic list that you just went through.
From interviews with folks like you on Zoom, just asking, like very concretely, tell us your stories about reflection. Tell us about a time that you shifted. Tell us about a time where you had that interruption within yourself. So what we're going to do today is we're going to do an activity that comes from a design thinking approach, which is designed to help us think a little bit about reflection, to actually do some reflection, and maybe try to help us along the way in seeing places where we've seen shifts in our practice. So what we're going to do is something called an empathy map. So what I'd like for you to do is close your eyes, and I'm going to ask you to reflect and think about a family that you have worked with over the course of this year, or maybe you've just worked with in the past. And you could think about a family that's special to you. You could think about a family that maybe you learned something from, maybe a family that you wish you knew a little bit more about. But I want you to bring a family to mind that you want to think about. Okay, you have a family. So now we're going to do something called some rapid fire brainstorming. Okay.
Fresh batteries.
All right. Okay, so you all have a family in your mind that you're thinking of. Here's what you're going to do. You're going to grab some sticky notes on your paper, and you are going to have 90 seconds. All right, and Vincent, you're going to be our timer on this.
Are we going to do some newsprint pad?
You're just going to use stickies for now. Okay? And the question that I'm going to ask you is, and you're going to, are you ready? All right, you have 90 seconds. Here you go. What is your family seeing in the world around them? What does their environment look like? What surrounds them? What problems might they encounter? All right, you have 90 seconds. Go. And each idea can go on a different sticky note. So what does the environment look like? What surrounds them? And what problems do they encounter? So what is your family seeing? And you are going to have 90 seconds. Saying and doing. The question for you. Ready, Vincent? We're going to need a timer. What are some of the quotes or defining words you've heard this person say? What are some of the biggest obstacles they might face, and what are some of the things they're trying to achieve? Okay, so what is this family saying and doing? Thank you, Vincent. Okay, we're now moving on to thinking and feeling. As you think about the family that you have in your mind, what's really important to them? What moves them? What keeps them up at night? These are really important questions, right? What's important to this family? What moves them? And what keeps them up at night? You have 90 seconds. Vincent! So again, what's important to this family? What moves them? And what's keeping them up at night? You have 5 seconds. Try to push yourself. One more. All right. I'm so glad that we have one more because I'm so curious to see what Vincent will do next. Okay, so this is the last one. What is your family hearing? Okay, pick one more, take a few more sticky notes. What is this person feeling? Stop feeling, sorry. What are they hearing? So what are people saying to your family? What are their friends saying? What is their family saying to them? What are their peers saying? What might their children be saying to them? So what are they hearing? Hearing. Thank you, Vincent, for that. So this is now the part what we're going to do. And we're going to ask you to draw an empathy map on your paper and start organizing your stickies. So in the quadrant where you see think and feel, put all the stickies where you wrote about what your family is thinking and feeling. In the quadrant where you see the word see, everyone should put in their stickies around what your family is seeing. In the quadrant where it says say and do, take a moment to put all your stickies that are say and do. So think and feel at the top. It really doesn't matter. But okay, so we started with here. We started with here, and then we went to say and do. What are some of the common themes that you are hearing from the families that you've put yourself in their shoes for? So that's what you've just been doing. We've been thinking about perspective taking by thinking about and putting ourselves in the shoes of families that we work with, and really thinking about what they hear, what they're saying and doing, what's keeping them up at night, what they're feeling, what they're seeing. I'd love to hear some of your insights as to what this activity of engaging in an empathy map has done for you, because quite clearly we did this because it's an exercise that strengthens our muscles and builds our habit of mind of taking other people's perspectives. I'm going to start over here. Do you want to share, Donna?
This is yours, right?
Good morning, everyone. So when I started doing this, what I noticed in the first quadrant when I did it was I was writing down negative things, negative things, negative things. Then we went to the next quadrant and I started writing down negative things, and I'm like, wait a minute, she just asked a general question. It doesn't have to be all negative. So then, but it took me a while to shift from looking at a family in a negative way to a positive way. And then the other reflection I had is I'm going to be retired for 2 years. And I feel like family engagement people, maybe you guys didn't do this because every day we talk about strength-based, and we want to look at positive things in families. But what I reflected on my own was like, wow, I'm only away from this for like 2 years, and I'm going negative again. And so it sounds like it's a practice that we constantly have to say, look at families in a strength-based way. What's going on that's good? And always try to start with that, because it's just going to be a different approach to connecting to families. So it was interesting to go through that. Thank you.
Can I ask someone from this table over here to share a reflection? You know, I'm looking at, would you mind sharing some of them? Oh, it was so good.
So one of the things that we talked about for the say and do was loneliness. A lot of our parents feel very isolated or very alone, especially what work that we do when we're dealing with kids who have significant behavioral concerns. And so we're going into the home to kind of work with parents on that, but we don't witness the interactions. So it's easy to give advice to a mom when you don't witness these interactions between mom and child. It's easy for the school to say, you need to do this, you need to do that. But we're not there at night. We don't know what mom is going through. So a lot of times she feels alone. So I guess the reassurance is what we were talking about, of making sure that our families feel supported, giving them their flowers, letting them know that they're doing the best that they can do, that they're working hard, that we see them. What did we miss? I miss anything? That they're doing the best that they can, because so many of our moms, especially our moms, we work with a lot of moms, not that we don't work with dads, but a lot of them feel lonely. A lot of them feel like they're in this by themselves, that they're failing as parents, that what's wrong with me, what's wrong with my child. The school is setting all of these demands, and I'm the only one struggling with meeting these demands. But the truth is, most parents are struggling with meeting the demands of these schools and just parenting in general. So just giving them those gentle reminders and those cheerleading moments for them.
Thank you for that. Thank you. And we have another reflection over here. Anne is pointing you out if you would feel comfortable.
Oh, no. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Oh, yes, you.
So we at our table all are from the same district, so it made it really easy for us to connect. But one of the things that we stumbled upon was there are common themes that are reoccurring in our positions, in that we have the ability to kind of change the narrative. Instead of sitting here and reflecting, I think we went into action planning. So we pulled out our calendars and we figured out ways how we can support each other, rather than think about how we are relating right now. Like, how do we change the narrative? So we have an action plan going here. I just texted my supervisor and told her what we were going to do. I didn't ask because it needs to get done.
We have time for one more.
So I wanted to share specifically something that I experienced in this process, and it was that the student and family that I thought of came into adult education with very specific needs related. They had a lot of fear and anxiety, and in thinking about all the barriers that the student felt that they were facing, what I realized was, if you're not familiar with adult education, oftentimes we have more flexibility to address student needs. And when I reflected on what we did for that student, and really it was around support, it was about demonstrating that we care about being flexible and really truly understanding and embracing what was going on for that student, that's where the results happened. That's kind of what we're talking about. That's what we need to get to. And that student ended up graduating and going on to post-secondary. It was really an amazing story.
So, a few of the things that we noticed as a collective here, that there were limitations, not enough, I can't, not enough, internal limitations, and the fear factor of just coming through for the children, and the children doing what they're supposed to be doing in school, what the school is expecting of them.
Thank you for that.
Wow, thank you.
Anne, would you like to offer your final reflections?
It was such a pleasure to watch you all just cooking at your tables, and all of the things that you came up with. I'm hoping that you can figure out a way to take this back to your settings and have similar conversations, because I think the insights I was overhearing were really awe-inspiring. I've been thinking about that fear factor. How many of you felt that many of the families that you work with feel anxious, fearful, worried about their children, not sure if they're doing the right thing, maybe feeling blamed? And how important it is, as Donna said at the beginning, for us to be positive, not to lead with what's wrong with the kid, or not to lead with what the problems are, but to recognize the strengths and assets of the families and the children we're working with, and working from there, building on that, building their confidence, their efficacy, their sense of identity, that we're really valuing their knowledge and expertise about their children. They're experts on their kids. They're experts on their culture, their family, their community, and we can learn so much from them. And when we go in with that attitude, it really builds their confidence, their sense of value of themselves. And then these other things that come up, these so-called problems, we can see them in ways that we can tackle them. So thank you, everybody. This was just wonderful.
An aha moment.
There you go. Yours is good.
There we are. Sunshine, come on, sunshine. What's your aha?
It's her speech.
Okay.
All right. It's to give reassurance to parents versus advice. You don't know the parents' everyday living experience. You're welcome, sunshine.
Got you. One more.
Well, if you stole from them, I'm going to steal from you. From your table, I wrote down that I can make the change. I can do what I know needs to be done, and then get other people to come along. I don't need to wait for the machine to catch up.